Welcome back to CKM Red Rugby League. It is Wednesday morning, and that can only mean that the team lists are out, and we are here to preview the latest round of the NRL. We are all the way into round 7 of the NRL now. Take you through it. You got myself, Matty, and Luke as well. How are you doing, Matt?
Yeah, mate, pretty good. We're still back on our early morning business, but we're back in Sydney now. We're finally back home, so we're happy about that. How are you?
Yeah, mate, no complaints. Gorgeous day out over here in Leeds. So, yeah, living good. We'll get straight into it then. And we will start with the Panthers versus Souths. Me and you immediately differing on this one. I've gone Panthers after how impressive they looked last week against the Storm. You've gone Souths. What's your thought process?
The South Sydney spine are finally starting to click. And when you have Walker, Reynolds, Cook, never mind who's at fullback, when those three are running with a full head of steam, they are fantastic and very nearly unstoppable. Now that you add Latrell Mitchell, who is probably in the best form since moving to South Sydney, starting to fire, having a really good connection on that left side with Cody Walker. Even with the Panthers' defense, I find it very hard to see them stopping South Sydney. I also recognise that they have Luai named at 6, Burton at 14, and Tyrone May listed in the 21. Now, if the Panthers decide to play May, which is being rumoured, I question the cohesiveness of the spine, who will have gone through 2 changes in 2 weeks for the Panthers. I think that the Panthers win the forward battle, but I don't know if they'll have that killer instinct in the red zone this week. And if they can't do that against the South Sydney side that generally is good with their goal line defence, then I think the Bunnies will get up.
Yeah, so when I looked and I saw May named in the 21 as well, of course, on the bottom we don't have the full 21. Fortunately, there's a character limit, but yeah, Tyrone May named in the 21 sort of put me on edge a little bit as well, because I thought it's bad enough that you have Burton on the bench. Of course, Burton didn't get used last week, as you predicted. So it brings into question what's your tactical angle. I mean, against Souths, you look at their bench. Knight, Sirinen, Margot, and then James Roberts is a big question mark for me. I wonder if they're maybe going to put him through a late fitness test and swap him into the centres for Braden Burns and then put on another forward, which I'd say is more likely. But yeah, I think that the Panthers win the forward battle. I look at how they played last week, and I think I can't overlook them this week. I mean, I backed them to beat the Storm last week, which came up. I'm going to back them again to beat South Sea because I think Coruscant's doing really well in and around the ruck, the edges. Mansour's been their top meter maker for 3 consistent weeks now. Towar's getting a few tries as well. I just wonder how the edges will fare against someone like Campbell Graham, who really stood up last week and looked really good.
The one thing, and you're right, from a Supercoach perspective, Mansour has been a beast. I love him. He's back to the old source that got him into Origin. The thing I think that will be interesting is Alex Johnson against Brian To'o. Both very good finishers. To'o more athletic than Johnson, but Johnson on the wing knows how to get to the line and does so way more than a lot of teams would like. And To'o's defense is very questionable. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Bunnies target that left side. We know that Billy Kickow is out that side as well. In the first 20 minutes, Kickow is great. And we saw last week that Cleary took him off. But in that 20 to 30, 35-minute period, he is a liability in defence. He tends to slip off a little bit. He tends to have a couple of ineffective tackles. He doesn't rack the ball up as much. And as a result, we see a lot of second phase play. So I think if the Bunnies in the back end of that first half can target the Panthers' left edge, try and get Toto coming in off his wing, you might see a couple of the beautiful floating ball from Latrell that we saw in the first half last week to get Johnson over. It wouldn't surprise me if we saw a couple of them. The Bunnies will take a first half lead. The Panthers will fight back. Their forwards have better fitness. They're stronger. But I think that the goal line defense of the Bunnies will hold them up in the back end of the second half and get themselves a win.
Yeah, I'm gonna go South, but it's gonna be close. I don't think there's gonna be any more than sort of 4 points in this either way. It's gonna be a tight scoreline. You're looking at maybe like a 22-18 or something like that. Both sides have been pretty good defensively this season, with the exception of the one-off game. But I think the platform that the forwards lay plays like Martin, really, really underrated. He's had a good couple games. Isaiah Yeo been really good. Yeah, again, for me, the big question mark is Burton at 14. Will they use him if it's as tight as it was last week? Because you saw it once a game's sort of 70 minutes in, you don't change your spine. 65 minutes, 70 minutes in, and it's a 2-point game. You don't change your spine. So, but I'm gonna back the Panthers by about 4.
Yeah, I think the Bunnies, but a similar scoreline. If anyone's looking for a gambling tip, either team 1-6 or try bet either team by 6.5. I think you're in pretty good. You're making some pretty good money on that one.
Yep. Right then, so move on to game 2, and that is the Storm against the Warriors. The Warriors, of course, now without a head coach after the biggest, probably questionable sacking I've come across in NRL recent history. Kearney goes. The Warriors weren't travelling bad, but now you've got to think that someone's going to come in and they're going to stir the pot a whole different direction. I don't see the Warriors doing well off the back of that, to be honest.
So I see this going one of two ways. Keep in mind that this is now being played at Jubilee and not at Amy Park because of the COVID scare in Victoria. Thank goodness I got out of there when I did. Either the Warriors come and they play like absolute dog poop and they get blown out of the park, or they play for Kearney and they prove that the sacking was wrong and they thrash the Storm by about 30. Now, you and I have both gone the Storm on this one. Jerome Hughes comes back in the halves. Riley Jacks drops out. Seve drops out as well for Josh Adokar. So they're back to full strength. And for the sparks of brilliance that we have seen from the Warriors in the last 4 weeks, I mean, they had, after scoring the first try, 40 points put on them last week. And, the writing was on the wall for Steve Kearney. Don't get me wrong. The writing was on the wall probably at the back end of last year. We knew at some point it was going to happen, but the circumstances in which it happened, I think the Warriors have done him dirty. The Warriors have done him dirty. The Warriors have done the players dirty. You could see it when Todd Payton was being asked, hey, was it coming? And he straight up said, yeah, I think it was. We didn't think it was going to be this week. Yeah, they've still won 2 out of 4 after the break. They're only 2 points out of the 8. But when you look at the past couple of years and how they've gone, it's a tough one. You feel for Steve, you feel for the players because they've been putting everything all out on the line. They've not been with their families for the last 2 weeks. And I know we've kind of gone away from the game analysis here, but a full-strength Storm squad against a very emotional Warriors side at the moment, I can't see any other result than Storm 13+.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that it's hard not to get almost emotionally invested with the Warriors with how much they've given up to actually keep the competition running. And I think when it comes down to the end of the season, I think people won't realistically care who's won it that much. I think it'd just be a case of the season's actually being completed, because it looked like the 2020 season had just been completely written off. So for the Warriors, I mean, there's no crowds right now for them, at least at Mount Smart. So for them to make this kind of decision, it just seems like it wasn't one that needed to be made right now. Probably not for the rest of this season. I think once they knew what they were into, but I think the dynamic in itself will probably throw the Warriors off. I mean, there's been a lot of rumours of unrest in camp, with a few players saying that they'd even pack up and go home now. Don't know how true those rumours are, but you know, after any coaching change, teams are usually a little bit disgruntled. And when you come up against a Storm side that lost last week, I mean, how often do you see the Storm lose 2 in a row? So it's going to be a case of the Storm, but by how much? I tend to agree that it's going to be a margin larger than 12. You know, with the rule that I've been going off of, like the last sort of few weeks, is Warriors win one, lose one, win one, lose one. I know they lost last week, but I think the pattern's broken now. I don't see the Warriors winning this one.
Yeah, and before we go to the next game, I don't know how many Storm fans are watching this, but if you're a Storm fan and you're upset that the game got taken away from Amy Park, grow up. Look at all the other sporting leagues around the world. The ones that are still having fans brought in outside of New Zealand are the ones that get continuous confirmations of players being confirmed for COVID-19, which then puts the public at risk of COVID-19. If you're really that upset at the NRL for pushing the Storm game up to Jubilee and for the Storm to be in New South Wales to keep the league going, knowing full well that those in Victoria are seeing more cases pop up. Case in point, go look at Essendon in the AFL. You need to have a good hard look at yourselves. The Warriors have given up a lot. They've given up at least 2 months with their family. They're going to be giving up more to keep this competition going. So if you really are that upset because the games for the foreseeable future are going to be in New South Wales, then take a good hard look at yourself, because there are a lot more important things in life right now than rugby league. And the Warriors players are giving up 99% of those more important things to make sure that we can still enjoy what we love to watch, what we love to be involved in. Yeah. Anyways, I've had my piece.
Right then, on to the next game then. Roosters versus Dragons. They will, unless you're a St. George members holder, I don't see anybody backing against the Roosters in this one. Winning, you know, relatively convincingly last week against the Eels. I mean, it was a thriller of a game. The scoreline flattered a little, but I mean, the Roosters on top in that one. And, you know, good to see Tedesco won't be ruled out this week as well. Tupou carrying a knock last week. He won't be missing either. He's named back in the 17. Collins returns in the 17 jersey as well, as he missed last week. I think he was very, very missed last week, to be honest. We've both gone the Roosters in this one. Obvious choice.
Yeah, obvious choice, even with the Dragon spine starting to click. The Roosters just too good. The scary part last week was when Tedesco went off, Brett Morris very easily went into the full-back role, and it looked as if nothing changed. Orbison slotted into the centres. Marnie got pushed out of the wing, and it was service as usual. Tedesco, I mean, we're expecting that he plays. We also recognise that it's a 6-day turnaround, and the concussion protocol takes 6 days. On the sixth day, he would be cleared to play. So any setback would see him out, Ryan Hall onto the wing, Brett Morris to fullback. Yeah. It's a good test for the new Dragon spine with Ben Hunt coming off the bench to really test themselves against the Roosters. I don't think the Roosters deserve to be 24-10 winners last week. but they got the reward for essentially keeping Parramatta on their own goal line for the full first 40. I know you were sweating bullets there for a quick second, but no, the Roosters deserved probably 6.8 point win in the end. 14 was a bit generous, but Parramatta got tired and got sloppy in the last 15 minutes. I'm going Roosters 13 plus on this one, but I don't think that the Dragons are going to be completely flooded off the park. It very well could be something like it could be like a 30-16 kind of game. Yeah, the Dragons, if they get on a roll, if Dufty can have a moment of brilliance, if Lomax can break his way through, if Hunt or Norman can dart through the defense from close, the Dragons can put points on it. I just think the Roosters are going to be too good in attack.
Yeah, for me, the interesting inclusion in the Dragons, Saab on the wing, after so much talk about him being disgruntled and wanting to leave. There's players that have been rumoured to be disgruntled and looking for an out have a very tricky way of turning up and performing. I mean, when you look at the 18 Sims, 19 Sailor, 20 Tim Laffey, 21 Billy Britton, the Dragons have still got some quality, even in the reserves. I don't think by any means they're going to be a dead ringer, 50 odd points. I'd be wary of the Dragons, to be honest. I think it's almost an air of complacency there. That you look at that Roosters team and how they've been performing, that you'd be even tempted to maybe push the boat out to a 20-point margin. I just get the sneaky suspicion that the Dragons might turn up this week, but I'd still back the Roosters. But I do think it could only be an 8 or 10-point margin, which is a big call, to be honest. But I just have a feeling about the Dragons this week.
Yeah, I don't blame you. They've definitely looked better in the last couple of weeks. The last couple of weeks, they've played like a team that potentially could be there or thereabouts come the end of the season. Now, whether they can arrest the deficit back after their shocking start of the year, that remains something else to be seen. But if they can win the games that they probably should win from here on out, I'd say that maybe they're in the conversation. I will say though, I said Roosters 13 plus, but the Dragons line currently is 17.5. So for anyone who's looking for some tips right now, granted this is 5:30 in the morning on Wednesday morning. As we record this, breaking the fourth wall here, 17.5 is not a bad shout if you're looking to try and get some sneaky money there on the Dragons.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think a lot of people have in mind that this one's going to be all the Roosters. I think the Dragons will have their moments, and that'll be enough to keep them within less than 3 converted. So yeah, I'm still backing Roosters by about 8 though.
Yeah, I'll give you that one.
Yeah. Okay, so next game, Cowboys versus Knights. We've both unanimously gone Knights on this one. The Cowboys have looked pretty off the boil of late. Last week, we were watching the game, and when the Tigers struck first, you were like, okay, that's an early try, nothing in that, and then all of a sudden things just all fell apart for the Cowboys way too quickly. And I can't pinpoint exactly what it was that made them fall apart. All I know is it happened very quickly.
So the Tigers have a good roster, not a great roster, but a good roster, a solid, probably 6 or 7 best team kind of roster. But they were going at a point a minute for basically the first half.
Yeah.
It was insane. They were playing out of their skin. And at the same time, the Cowboys just looked shot. And yeah, Danon said it on the round review. When Taumalolo dropped the ball off the first hit up, Cowboys' heads just went down. It's almost as if they gave up and lost the game there. Newcastle just they shouldn't have to play more than solid football to get up here. Their spine is looking fantastic. Their props underrated, arguably the best props in the competition right now in the Saifidi brothers and Clemmer. Look, the Cowboys need a spark. Tabuai Fido didn't provide that until probably the 70th minute for the Cowboys. Drinkwater had moments of brilliance, but defensively was a liability in the first half. Clifford just isn't showing a lot at the moment. And Robson just a lack. Robson, you could throw him in with Clifford there, and that comes down to a lack of NRL experience, I think. So, look, the Cowboys harp on Taumalolo and to a lesser extent Maguire pushing forward, getting the hit-ups, getting the second phase option plays, and then trying to create something in the 20, while the Knights can and will do it from anywhere. When you have Ponga, Pearce, Kurt Mann playing out of his skin at 5'8", when you have, like I said, the props, but then Edric Lee, who's a solid finisher.
Yeah, I think that when you mention Clifford and Drinkwater in particular, you've got two pretty inexperienced halves. I mean, they looked good pre-season when you're talking about the Nines, but when you're trying to play first grade and you're trying to steer, a pretty experienced pack around the field, it's tough. And for me, that's what's showing at the minute. They're missing a real, I don't want to say real playmaker because I don't want to discredit the ability of Drinkwater or Clifford, but they're missing that experienced hand in the halves that can pick those options and make those plays. I agree with Tabuai Fido. He's just not looking like he's quite there for me yet. I mean, he's a good player. No doubt he's one for the future. I just don't think he's one for right now. The forwards, they've got great forwards. I think when you look at their pack, they're going to struggle this week. Hess, on his day, quality meter maker, relatively consistent, but been off the boil of lately. But when you look to the Knights, Lachlan Fitzgibbon, since coming back from injury, looking really strong. Glasby holding it up, and then the Saifiti brothers and Clemmer as well. Shibasaki had a really good game last week as well. I thought that Shibasaki at the centres, covering an absent Bradman Best, who, as news media are covering it, burst the bubble. I thought he looked really good in the centres, but then again, that could be players turning up against their old team, obviously. The Broncos releasing Shibasaki and then Shibasaki getting loose on the Broncos last week. But I thought he looked pretty decent. So, yeah, if you would ask me to pick a winner in this one, it's Knights. But dependent on what Cowboys team shows up, I'm going to say Knights by a minimum of 10 here.
Yeah, I'm going Knights 13 plus here as well. I don't say that with a lot of confidence, because if the Cowboys show up and play in the first half like how they did for the first 20 of the second, then they could very well shock the Knights here. But yeah, Knights 13 plus is what I'm thinking. Ponga coming up against his old team as well. Ponga just has a knack of knowing where to be at the right time. We talk about Tedesco and Tommy Turbo, and we'll get to Manly later, being the two best fullbacks in the world. But Ponga, Ponga's only 22.
Yeah.
He's a freak of nature, and this Knight's spine is mortally underrated, in my opinion. So I'm going Knights 13 plus. I don't say that with a lot of confidence. It's probably going to be 14 point win for the Knights, I think.
Yeah, for me, what rests on it for this week is if Mitchell Pearce sorts out his fifth play option. You saw him struggle with it last week. Kicks too long, running the ball, throwing a couple wild passes. If he gets his fifth and last option right, then the Knights run this one out. Again, it's the Cowboys. It depends which team shows up. If it's the team from that first half, the Knights put 50 on them. If it's the team from that back end, where even when they were 37 down, you look at them and you thought, oh, there could be a way back. You can't write the Cowboys off, and they're continually a pain in the ass to try and pick from. It was the same last week with the Tigers, even though the Tigers were the form team coming into it, looked better, and we still couldn't decide. But yeah, I'm going to be fairly confident with Knights this time, and we'll leave that game alone now because we've been on it for a while. And with that, then we move on to a game that, if at the beginning of the season you'd have said it caused a few headaches, people would have looked at you a bit daft. But here we are, struggling to pick from the Titans and the Broncos. I've gone Broncos. You've also reluctantly joined me on the Broncos on this one.
I initially said Titans. I have no shame in saying that. However, the more I thought about it, and this very well could come back to bite me, the more I thought about it, the more I think that there are a couple of deciding factors that will go the Broncos' way. Factor number one, Payne Haas and Tavita Pangai Jr. I think you're just going to run right straight through the guts. The Titans have found a gun in Big Mo, and they still have Jai Arrow, but that's 2 out of 6. I know I mentioned Haas and Pangai as the two main forwards for the Broncos, but yeah, even without Carrigan, even without Flagler, that you've got Offa Hingawi, who's an Origin representative, who usually starts on the bench, mind you, that is going to start for the Broncos. I think they're more consistent in defence. They have a dual international in Alex Glenn. It's too experienced of a forward pack for me. Factor number 2, you have Anthony Don, who is a very, very good finisher, but not an overly strong defender, going up against a guy in Xavier Coates, who I think 2 weeks ago when he played Manly, I said looked to be the next coming of a young Greg Inglis / Izzy Folau, at least in the air. He has speed. He has a clean set of hands. I think he's just going to overpower Don on that wing, and it would not surprise me if Croft, assuming he plays this week, targets that almost every single time from inside the 30. And I think the change of Isako out of fullback and Niu coming in will spark something. Niu, and David Fafita, for that matter, both being targeted by the Titans. We reported that today, along with every other news site. I think Niu's just going to bring something different to that Broncos attack. He's a live wire, a bit of a spark that Isako hasn't provided in the last couple of games. The only issue that I see is that Isaac Luke is coming off maybe 120 minutes of game time this season. And he's going to have to play 80 with no Corey Pay this weekend. So we'll see. It's a tough one to pick in in terms of just these are just two out-of-form teams. But yeah, very, very reluctantly, I'm going the Broncos, but it's not going to be by much.
Yeah, I join you on that reluctance bus. I when I was going through before the team list came out, I was leaning towards the Broncos, and then when the team list came out, I leaned further away from the Broncos because you got Isaac Luke, who's not been an 80-minute hooker for quite some time now. You go your halves. Where do you even start with the Broncos halves? I'd even have been more tempted to see New at 6, Dearden at 7, and Milford to fullback and put Azarko on the wing. Potentially move Oates into the back row and put Farnworth on the other side and reshuffle that way. And just you've got nothing to lose at this point. Tinker with it and find your best setup, because I know that I've not mentioned Boyd in there. They're kind of strapped for centres at this point. Nobody's going to unseat Boyd, unfortunately. You Broncos fans, you're stuck with him until the end of the season. Bad news. But Milford, for the criticisms that Sean Johnson has copped and Ash Taylor has copped for the amount of money that they're on and the calibre player that they are, Milford has somehow slipped under the radar of the NRL media for underperformers. Milford has not looked there or thereabouts for some time. There's even points where I question whether he's still on the field. So you saw what Tessie New did against England in the 6 role. Give him a shot. Give him a run out there. Give Dearden an opportunity to show that he is a starting 7.
I have a sneaking suspicion that Seabold's been criticised for playing New at the 1, but leaving Dearden in the 18 because he said, well, Tom hasn't had a great deal of game time, so we're hesitant to throw him in. It wouldn't surprise me if this is New's audition. If he plays well this week, Isako very well might just drop out of the 17 completely, and that 14 role becomes Milford's, to then see Dearden come in as the game management 5'8" half, Croft partnering up as the more attacking player. But you almost have to think, and you have to question as to whether they regret letting Nikorima go last year. Because for all the criticism that the Warriors halves do get for not doing one thing or another, Nikorima has looked a lot more dangerous than both Milford and Croft, arguably combined, this year at the Warriors with the issues that they've had.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the Broncos. I mean, this is the final point now I'm going to make on the Broncos. I'm going to move to the Titans then. You look at the Broncos. They have as good as, in fact, no, not even as good as, they have 4 fullbacks in their 17. That's immediately an issue. It's all well and good having versatility, but having 4 fullbacks, New, Milford, Boyd, and Azarko. I mean, I don't know what Azarko. He's not been brilliant, but I don't think it warranted dropping Azarko. I think there's 3 or 4 players in that Broncos side that you put on the chopping block before you even look at Azarko. But okay, whatever. The decision's been made. I'm not the Broncos head coach. You couldn't pay me enough to do it at the minute. Looking at the Titans, I mean, putting Mitch Rain back in at 9, good decision. I think they've lacked a little bit of leadership in and around the ruck. Aaron Clark, to his credit, has been going okay, as has Tanner Boyd. But I think they need someone like Mitch Rain in there who's going to steady them around the ruck. Thankfully, they've got Philip Sammy back and Corey Thompson as well. Corey Thompson surviving the HIA as well. But as you mentioned, day 6 should be... No, day 6 would be the game before game day. So expect to get confirmation of that one in late mail. But Fotuaker being probably one of the most surprising standouts in any team I mean, he's up there in the Dally M leaderboard, and rightfully so. He's been fantastic. I wouldn't be surprised to hear that there's a couple of teams chasing him, but I know that the Gold Coast Titans have been wanting to retain him for some time. You look at their backline, Dawn, Kelly, Copley, Sammy, you've got some good talent in there. So I think there's going to be a decent battle on the edges. Xavier Coates, he's going to probably have another good game. As you mentioned earlier, GI-esque when it comes to being in the air. And even more so when he clocked up that intercept last week. He was gone. No one was getting anywhere near him. Set a new NRL speed record as well. Now officially the fastest player in the NRL. But when you got legs like Edric Lee, 10 strides and you're down the field. So, it's this one I don't see being decided by more than 8 points, but I think the Broncos have got to get it right this week, and I think that they will.
Yeah, look, in terms of betting odds, Broncos 134, Titans 325. I think the Titans are over on that. The try bet for 8.5, or either team by 8 or less on Sportsbet is $2.30. You can double up with either team by 10 or less. If you want to play it somewhat safe, either team 1 to 12, $1.83 either way, yes or no. I mean, I know well and truly that you can get bitten by that with a draw. Thank you very much, Panthers Knights, a couple of weeks ago for costing me $400. But yeah, I think that try bet 10.5, either team by 10 or less for those looking for a sneaky double up. That's the way to go, because this could, despite the betting odds, go either way.
Yeah. I'm gonna go Broncos by no more than 4. I don't see it being any further than that. It's going to be. I reckon this one's probably going to have a few tries in it. But both these teams are not. They're not point shy, with the exception of the Broncos, the last couple of weeks. But if you go back through the record books, I don't see this one being a low-scoring affair, and I think that the Broncos edge it in the end.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more than that. I reckon it wouldn't surprise me if there's 50 points.
Yeah. Right then. So another close one coming up, but for different reasons this time. Eels versus Raiders. We've both gone for the Eels. I mean, they've only lost one game this season. They had to back against them. The Raiders have looked a little bit inconsistent as well. Not sure what's going on. I mean, Manly were down to one reserve last week. They were before, 50 minutes in, and they were down to one reserve, and the Raiders could not put them to bed. Granted, there was some incredibly gutsy defence on display there, but a Raiders side of that calibre should be putting Manly to bed.
So, again, last week I went heart over head and picking the Eels. This week, it's both. Like you said, very hard to go against Parramatta this year, but they proved that against arguably the best. Well, I wouldn't say arguably. The Roosters are the best attacking team of the competition. For 65 minutes, you hold that Roosters side to one try. It still ended up being 3 tries to 2 in the end. It's just some ill discipline by Parramatta cost them 2 or 3 penalty goals, and it made the scoreline look a little bit worse than the game was. If Parramatta can defend like that for the full 80 and attack as they have been for the most part, and if we see the same Raiders attack show up that we've seen for 2 out of the last 3 weeks, then I have no hesitation in going with Parramatta. Look, their halves didn't play the best last week. Dylan Brown better than Moses, I think, in that regard. But Gutherson is starting to come into his own. Micah Sevo and Michael Jennings, that combination looks as threatening as it ever has been. no Nathan Brown this week, but Maratini Ikore should start at lock, and he provides is not necessarily the impact of Nathan Brown, but I think what you'll see is Niokore starting, playing 25 to 30 minutes each half, and then potentially seeing someone like Madison shift into lock for that middle gap, and potentially seeing someone like Penny Terapo or Oregon Kafusi coming into the lineup and playing that edge role for 25 or 30 minutes. So you won't lose anything in terms of defense there. Betting odds, Parramatta 167, Raiders at 220. I'm happy just to take Parramatta head-to-head on that. That I think is overs. They should be closer to $1.50.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned there, no Nathan Brown this week. You look at their reserves, you've got George Jennings, Daniel Alvaro, David Gower and Jai Field. I don't see Jai Field coming in, or George Jennings, to be honest. So I'd probably say Daniel Alvaro is more likely to make it into the 17. So Brown's got to sort out his discipline. He's only just come back from a ban, and he looked good. He looked good in the last two. And unfortunately, now he'll stay out for another 2, which is a huge blow to the Eels, realistically, because the mobility.
So, I hate to interrupt. The one thing that I don't get is, and this may come out as biased, I'm more than happy to admit I am a Para fan, have done so many a time. How does Brown get 2 weeks, but Latrell gets off a fine? I understand that loading is an issue, but Latrell knocked for 2 in the next week. Couldn't come back from his HIA. Nathan barely got Radley on the, don't get me wrong, he clocked Radley, but Radley was falling down in a very good tackle, had already lost the ball, and gets 2 weeks with prior loading on a grade 2. Mm-hmm. Really?
Yeah, it's a tough one, but I think they've had to factor in the fact that he's only just come back. So, I mean, it's a tough one. If you really wanted to get into it, you talk about Wade Egan only getting 1 week at the Warriors, and George Burgess getting 10 weeks for exactly the same thing last season. But the Warriors can't bring anyone in, so that one's by the by. But yeah, the Eels have lost a lot of mobility there in Brown. They've lost a physical player. I do think that would reduce their chances of a win, not detrimentally. But you look to the bench, what they brought Takarangi in. He's a versatile player. I like Brad Takarangi, but I just don't feel like he's the right choice for this week. Where do you play him? 13? Don't know.
Well, I said Oregon Kafusi. Obviously, I didn't read the team sheet close enough. He's not in the 21. Or is he on the bench? Oh, he's in. Okay. All right. Yeah. Like I said, 6 a.m. we're rolling with it. But Takarangi could be that guy that comes on for 25 or 30 minutes and plays at second row, where he has played for some of his career. He's played on the flank for goodness knows how long. Solid player, can find a line break, has an offload. I know that he can play in the halves as well. Played in the 6 for the Cook Islands during the World Cup qualifiers. People highlights on YouTube. Slight plug. But look, for 25 or 30 minutes, Takarangi on the edge and Madison at lock isn't a bad move. And the Raiders have lost a lot of mobility. I think in the forward pack with no John Bateman. Horsburgh does provide some good go forward, but for the 25 minutes that he's off, Hudson Young, Ryan Sutton don't really appeal to me as those impact players. So, like I said, Parramatta head-to-head looking like the good bet for me. But if the Raiders can sort out their attack this week, they're by no means out of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking at the Eels. You don't go unbeaten for the first 6 games of the season, then lose 2 in a row. I don't see that happening, especially the Raiders. They're low on confidence. Nickel Klokstad hasn't found that form that really made him an icon last season. Rapana, I still don't think that he's over his rugby love affair yet. Curtis Scott, he's copped a lot of flack this week. I singled out Scott maybe 2-3 weeks ago, saying that it's time to maybe reshuffle him. It's the edges. The edges are going to be where they have the biggest problems. I picked out Michael Jennings last week, saying that he's going to have nightmares against Joey Manu, who you can palm you into. To quote it exactly, he can palm you into row C of Bankwest. Jennings stood Manu up and then just got rid of him. Just absolutely shoved him off. Jennings is gonna, if he plays like he did last week, Jennings has a field day on the edge. And Sevo, if you get him coming onto a flat ball wide, problems, nothing but problems. So it's going to be a tough ask for the Raiders. I don't see them standing up. The only potential problems I see is maybe Parramatta's discipline. Ray Stone, he's got a few loose tackles in him, or some that creep a little bit high. In some cases, as you saw last week. But I think if the Eels stay on top of discipline and execute the game plan of going to the edges, I don't see anything less than Eels by 10.
Yeah, I'm not confident in Eels by 10. I could see Eels by 4, just because I'm not sure what attack's going to show up this week. But, yeah, like I said, Parramatta head-to-head at $1.67. I feel like that's pretty easy money.
Yep. Okay, move on to the next game then. Another one that has split us. Sea Eagles Sharks off the top of my head. Let me just double check. Yep. I've gone Manly. You've gone Sharks. Me and you must have watched 2 very different games last week.
It's not that we watched different games. There is no doubting that Manly were fantastic, especially on defense. The issue that I have, and it's not that I'm betting or going with the Sharks with any sense of confidence here. It's the fact that Manly just can't win without Tom Trbojevic. Fox Sports put out some really interesting stats, and I think, if I recall correctly, Manly win 1 of every 5 games without Tommy Turbo. Now, I haven't looked at their schedule past this week. I can't say it's of complete interest. Being a Parramatta supporter, we don't want the boys from Brookie to be going too well. But I don't know. This and the 2 Sunday games are the 2 games that I was tossing and turning about. Yeah. More so than Titans Broncos. It doesn't fill me with confidence saying Sharks, but there's not going to be any go forward with Brendan Elliott coming off the back of Daly, and they've got Croker in the 6, but it wouldn't surprise me if Cade Cust comes on to start in the 14 and Croker goes back to the bench. But yeah, I just don't trust Brendan Elliott coming out of the back. Brad Parker, I think, could be struggling to play this week. And he, either way, would come up against 2 very strong centres in Dugan and Ramian. Katoa now has confidence. I know Manly get Tapau and Georgie to fullback, but I just have a sneaking suspicion that Sean Johnson is going to have a cracking game this week. He might set Katoa up for another try or 2. And look, the bet I suggest is either team 1-12, but I'm going Sharks for the upset with no real confidence on this one. Yeah.
So I look at how the Sharks played last week, and it made for a tough watch, to be honest. I mean, they didn't play overly well. I get that they had to reshuffle their back line a little bit with Moylan going off after that horror show car crash that he got involved in. But it was... I'm the same as you. I can't look at the Sharks and go, this is my winner this week. I think you look at the Sea Eagles last week, really gutsy performance. I mean, we'd as good as written them off last week, saying that they didn't have the quality on the bench and it'd be a runaway in the last 20 minutes.
Yep.
They've started to get some of that quality back now. Sirenen, huge game last week. I thought he was absolutely incredible. Tapau coming back from 2 weeks off. Georgie Tafua. I mean, the only place I look at, there's two spots that I look at and think there's some big question marks for me, and that is Elliott at fullback and Funa at centre. I've not seen Funa at centre before. I've only seen him at wing. So I don't know how he'll go, especially inside Garrick, who's not the strongest defender. But I'd fancy Manly in this one, just based on how the Sharks have played recently. I mean, they've not been brilliant. I mean, last week Johnson did find a bit of a running game, and you've got to say it made the Sharks look a little more dangerous, especially when he ran the ball in the first 5 minutes. You thought, oh, here we go, this could be something. But it never really looked like breaking the line at any point. It looked a bit half-assed dummies here and there, but I fancy the Sea Eagles. I don't think that they can be overlooked, especially with those stats floating around. I mean, you hear everyone mention the Cowboys, Tamalolo, he carries, look at their win-loss ratio without him. They're doing the same thing with Trebojevic now over at Manly, and I just don't see Manly taking too kindly to that, so I see them getting up here.
Yeah, it's the more you talk about it, the more I'm starting to regret my bet. But I'm going to hold strong on this one. I'm going to hold strong and say Cronulla. Funa defensively is not bad, and he will be protected a little bit. We've seen plenty of high ball issues. Garrick generally is pretty good in the air, but if Johnson and Townsend and even Moylan get that right kick, where it's just going to just split wing and center, or go wing and second row, center and second row. Sorry, you could see. I don't recall if Funa's going to go against Ramian or Dugan, but either way, both are generally pretty good in the air. So if they put some pressure on Funa, we may not see a try like for that on that play or the play after, but you could see some repeat sets. You could see a scrum 10 out, and from there, I think Manly will crack under that pressure. But like I said, no real confidence, and I mean, as we move to Dogs Tigers, no real confidence either in that one. Hey, mate.
Yeah. So we move then to the Dogs and the Tigers. Nice little segue there. Again, I'm going Tigers. You've gone Dogs. You've made some very suspect calls this week, my friend.
I have, and to be fair, you did convince me to go Broncos over Titans. As you mentioned, I did initially go Titans, reluctantly changed. Look, my thinking is this. The Dogs, for 15 minutes, looked appalling. 10 of those minutes, Brandon Wakeham wasn't on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, it was against Cronulla, but they had direction for the first time in a very long time. And look, the Tigers for 60 minutes played really good football, but they're prone to that lapse that we saw last week. Foreign, and it's hard to say because you don't want to hype him too much because of his injury history, and you feel like it could pop up again. But he has turned the Bulldogs into at least a watchable team that very well could on their day pull an upset off. Wakeham looked like a halfback. We know that he's a very good halfback. He proved it. Avarillo was coming into his own on the edge. Looked very dangerous, I thought, against Cronulla. nothing needs to be said about Hopewadi with Tenny Selesniak. Just two stalwarts of the Bulldogs, two very good players. And yeah, to be fair, they've got a pretty good hooker in Marshall King. Napa on his day is a fantastic. Elliott had a standout game. Josh Jackson, still one of the premier second rowers in the competition. The Tigers can be hit and miss on their flanks in terms of defense. There are days where you have the likes of Leilua and Garner who are fantastic. Sometimes Leilua can go missing. You can't discredit David Notfaluma. Just a freak of nature on the wing. But they've got Tommy Talau who's back from injury. I have no doubt they're going to test him in the air. I also went the Dogs based on the fact that the Tigers lost 3 of their starters. They lost Rob Jennings, they lost Alex Twile, they lost Zane Musgrove. Twile and Musgrove gave them a lot of go forward last week. This one I'm a little more confident on with the Dogs at 280 as well on the odds. I'm going with them on the head-to-head in the upset, but it depends on what Bulldogs team turns up.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Twal out, they bring in Taylor on the bench, big Elijah Taylor, not seen him for a little while. I'm looking forward to seeing him back in action. I think the Dogs look a better side for having Wakeham in over Lachlan Lewis. Wakeham just seemed to dictate play a little better. I mean, he had his little bit of a brain rush last week where he did shoot in 50-50 on whether that should have actually been a sin bidding. I mean, it was a physical tackle. It wasn't complete. He had every right to go for it. I think it just looked bad, and for whatever reason in this softer game, he had to go. So, but that's in the past. Yeah, as you mentioned, no Jennings, Tommy Talau comes in, but he looks pretty good as well. I don't see the problem being in the Tigers' backs. I see it being in the forwards, although Garner's looked good, but Clark, not a lot of game time this year. McIntyre only on game 2. Eisenhuth at 13. Iffy on. But the Dogs have got a little bit of talent coming back. Got Josh Jackson back. He's looked good. Run off to Amonga. Again, impressed me last week. It's the back line for the Dogs for me that really sort of confuses me week in, week out. You put Holland at 14 last week, you put him in the centre this week, you put Avarillo on the wing, but then you play him centre. Hopewadi could well end up in the 13 shirt at this point. There's no point looking at what the Dogs have put on paper. They'll just throw it up in the air, see where it lands. But I do think that they are making big improvements. I can't discredit them. Wakeham looked good last week. Foreign, his running game. It's got to be said, when you take away the onus on Kieran Foran of being the dominant half, he just enjoys himself and he makes things happen. But I think the Dogs need a bit more structure. If you look at, I think 2 of their tries last week were just off the cuff. You had Elliott grubbering through, and just the Dogs were faster to react to it. And there was another try last week. I can't remember which one it was, but two off-the-cuff plays that just need a little bit more structure and need to stop relying on play breaking down. Because, I mean, if you want to talk about players that take advantage of play breaking down, Harry Grant being phenomenal. The Tigers need to find a way to get him out of his contract at Storm. Their focus this season needs to be on finding a way of getting Grant away from the Storm and making him your long-term 9 and building a spine around Dewey, Brooks and Grant, and then whoever long-term fills the 6th shirt after Benji or Josh Reynolds, because I think Benji's been linked with Super League, but in that 20 minutes where the Tigers capitulated last week, that's where you need a Benji Marshall, someone that steadies the game, someone that takes the control, and that's what they missed. They missed him big time last week, and they almost fell apart.
Almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going with the Dogs. I say it with a little more confidence than I do my Sharks tip. But yeah, you can't discredit Harry Grant. Reed Marnie, I think, gets the Origin call up this year, but he's going to have Harry Grant breathing down his neck. Potentially, you see Harry Grant this year in the 14 for the Maroons.
Definitive answer time. What scoreline are you thinking? You're leaning Dogs, I'm leaning Tigers. What's your score?
I'm leaning Dogs. I'm going to say 20-16. Harry Grant and Jake Averillo, both anytime try scorers.
I'm going to go Tigers. I'm going to go plus. I'd even take them on a -6 handicap, even push it out as far as maybe even a -10. If you're feeling optimistic, but yeah, I see the Tigers winning this one. I don't see the Dogs holding out. So yeah, I'm gonna over 30. Tigers -8.
All right, I like it.
Right. Well, that's going to wrap it up there then. This has been another round preview. Follow us. Make sure that you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. We also have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All that good stuff, keeping you up to date with all the rugby league news. Check back in after the round finishes to see how our predictions got on. And yeah, happy punting, and we'll see you next week. Peace.